And welcome to AEW's Year in Review. We are the Dadley Boyz of What Culture. I'm Adam Wilborn, joined by Michael Havler and Michael Sidgwick to review AEW's year. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube, where we do daily wrestling podcasts where we review AEW Dynamite, AEW Collision, Raw, SmackDown, the show formerly known as NXT 2.0. Pay-per-views, premium live events. We have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week complete with a very good quiz, of course, on Wrestle Culture. As I said, though, joined by Hamlet and Sidgwick to talk about our favourite moments of AEW's year. We're doing it with WWE's main roster and with NXT, of course. And it's really good vibes only because we're trying to be positive.
Is it?
Close out the year. Sidge, yeah, sticking with the good vibes for a year that has, let's be honest, been mixed for AEW. They still have had some sensational matches and moments.
Yes, absolutely. It would be remiss of me. I know you've got this rule, but I'm going to change it. You can't mention AEW's year in 2023 without talking about the fact that the decline has started, the rot has set in, the vision has been diluted, mistakes have been made. A lot of the fan base has been alienated. The product has flattened and frozen over a little bit. But, however, like, this promotion is still capable of the highest of highs, even during a lull. It's like it's still fighting for you to have perspective on what an amazing thing AEW is, can be, has been, and even just represents. Every now and then, throughout a phenomenally uneven year, where it was either seminal, piss poor, or all too often, unforgivably, a bit bland, a bit dry, a bit familiar, like you can still get absolute genius, brilliance from this promotion. It's if it's fighting to tell you, like, be grateful for this, have some perspective. We are recording this in the wake of that Dave Meltzer tweet. Who knows when this gets released, what he was talking about, how dire it is. He basically tweeted, if you've forgotten or if nothing's come of it since, or if, you know, the world's on fire, let's just say, I'm paraphrasing, let's just say things are changing big. CM Punk has a lot to do with this, and people connected some dots between a certain Warner COO or whatever he is, Zaslav, calling him one Bill Phil, and he likes CM Punk, obviously. And does that mean, Jesus Christ, Raw's going to TBS? We don't know. We do not know. But there's not just that. There are the, you know, low attendances, these flatter crowds, this lack of the spark. Never, ever lose sight or lose perspective on how special this promotion is. This promotion, every now and then throughout 2023, and we'll get there, I will go balls deep in my praise. Like, Tony Khan's a unicorn. They say never in wrestling, and we've been reminded of that in 2023. Vince McMahon, time of recording, seemingly gone forever. His big coup didn't work. Triple H has been selected. Vince McMahon's gone forever. Doesn't even own WWE anymore. CM Punk has gone back to WWE. Even in this, well, never does actually mean never era. You will never. The never and never say never. The real never and never say never isn't Punk. It isn't McMahon. It isn't anything. You will never get a billionaire son who likes Mid-South wrestling, tape traded, went to ECW shows, and got a TV deal for wrestling, which historically, by the advertising industry, has been regarded, you thick idiots who cannot afford to purchase the lovely wares hawked by advertisers because you are low-income morons. That's what the TV industry thinks of you. This is, never lose sight of this. If this ends, you basically. And every now and then, there's just something that's happened in this promotion where I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm looking at the face of God here. And there are just countless seminal moments, Hamlet. Give us a couple before I just plow ahead and let you talk.
Well, matches, and like Sid will have a list as long as his arm, but even like just the ones off the, like CM Punk versus Mojo at Wembley, like an all-time favourite. House Black defend the trios titles against CMFTR. Satoshi Kojima versus CM Punk. Just classic matches. Top my dome, right?
You were obnoxious enough on the Fed one.
Tell me when I'm telling lies, Sidge. Good promo, that. No, I'll stop being a dick now. Like, it is still, I think, the match quality promotion.
Of course it is.
For a brand of wrestling fan that, like, the AEW exists for. There we go. Like, I think the lack of crowd heat in too many of these matches is affecting the overall average of an AEW show now in the way that it never used to when it was just a hot product. Like, the hot crowds elevated mid-matches into something more special. But if you take AEW at its very, very best in 2023, it is still the alternative. It's still the challenger brand. It is still promoting matches that people, it doesn't matter if I don't think this, that will still consider the match of the year with the best wrestlers in the world. There's a wrestling show and there's a sports entertainment show still. The sports entertainment show is vastly outperforming the wrestling show in a kind of a thing a lot of us wouldn't think. From a business point of view, it's something a lot of us wouldn't have foreseen. To the gap, the way the gap has opened up is something I don't think anybody would have forecast. But the wrestling show is still performing well enough that on its best day, it is everything the wrestling fan could want or ask for. Away from WWE, it is still serving its purpose, even if it doesn't always look like it is, and that's so important to know. Even in the bad weeks, even with the clouds, the WBD rumors, everything like that. Like, even like, we're recording this in the middle of the Continental Classic, and that at its core is still something WWE wouldn't or couldn't do. No. And there hasn't been anything that's teased 5 stars in that tournament yet. And it's still not something that WWE could produce. They just wouldn't. And, you know, that's like one example of which there are loads.
And that's part of the reason, I'm not going to stray into this conversation too much. That's the reason why we hold AEW to such a high standard.
Oh, indeed.
Because we know what it's capable of. I should mention, by the way, this is the year that the two of you got to go to 2 different AEW shows, one in the UK and one in the US, of course.
Indeed, I will talk about that imminently, but I need to talk about this match quality, and I need to talk about certain moments in this match that made me realise, you know, you have to keep your perspective on just how special this is, even when it's cold, how special it is. I'm going to run through certain moments in certain matches, right? You have Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr., which in and of itself was just wonderful before the bell rang. The idea that this could happen, the idea that there's an audience for it, the idea that there's a wrestling promoter who just wants to give one of his top stars, one of his most trusted lieutenants, his career match that he's wanted forever, and that technical wrestling purists have just had it in their mind's eye, in their pipe dreams, and he delivered it, and it was absolutely incredible. And I'm watching it, and I'm watching Bryan Danielson bridge out of a hammerlock, and then realize, I can't do that, actually. My arms are still really, like, in a state of disrepair. Like, it just don't get that level of technique, that level of immersion, that level of strategy, that level of chess playing anywhere else in professional wrestling. And they delivered it, and that match was fantastic. I saw Zack Sabre Jr. take a dragon screw, and it looked very much like those horror, you know, like in football when you go like studs up and like they can kind of walk it off. The worst ones are when like a part of your leg moves in a different part of the other, and it looks innocuous compared to like the fibula breaks, but you think, oh no, that's 12 months out. Oh, Christ almighty. I watched Zack Sabre move his leg like that and carry on wrestling. Selling, obviously, but you know, he wasn't in, how did he do that? How did you do it? Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page have the most violent mainstream match in the history of North American professional wrestling, and it turned me into a bloodthirsty animal. MJF and Bryan Danielson, the last 10 minutes, the fans were chanting "Fight Forever" when they weren't fighting; they were just selling. You ever seen? Actually, I've told you, I'm gonna put you through this. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Bad Blood, 48 minutes, and they spend so much of it lying down. The idea being, I know what really counts about wrestling. You know what really makes the magic. You know, you get the people as the spaces between moves. They push that to the limit. They just lie down.
Put a ladder and a table in there, in a cell.
They're just lying down as well for so long. MJF and Danielson were just selling exhausted on the mat. The difference is they actually had them. They were chanting "Fight Forever." They were just selling. They just wanted to see them sell. They wanted to see them do this match.
That was the oxygen mask match, wasn't it?
Absolutely incredible prestige drama tier twist. I do not care how pretentious that sounds. You were watching MJF in that moment, locked in the label lock, thinking, There is absolutely no possible way he comes back and wins this. There's just none. And then they introduce the way with which he wins after the fact, because no one would ever see that coming. That's the level of thought. That's the difference. Name something in a WWE match this year where that had the same level of that is ingenious storytelling that just does not compare. It does not compare. At its very best, even in the smaller matches, you'll see a character moment. You'll see a spot where you think, in hell. The level of thought that goes into that's unbelievable. I'm not even his biggest fan as a character. I find the idea that he's this sort of mental manipulator / supernatural adjacent guy a little bit cringeworthy. Malachi Black having the ladder against the ropes, moving the ropes to move the ladder. So, all right, okay, you've actually become spooky. You're a poltergeist. That's a genuinely amazing character where you can actually manipulate things to your will, which you've tried, I think. I don't even know what you're talking about half the time. But I think you're trying to convey that over the past 3 years of your career. And you've managed it in the context of a professional wrestling match. There's just... And I hate how I'm praising to the hilt the wrestlers in the wrestling matches, because in 2021, I used to like the narrative ingenuity. We used to be just unparalleled. That's gone, and that is sad. But where it really matters, and I'd love to anticipate it more. I'd love to luxuriate knowing that something like that was coming. And I've missed that sensation, that feeling of, I used to spend those weeks before the pay-per-view like, come on, let's go. Okay, let's go. Knowing I was going to get that. I still get it, but mainly in the matches, not the storylines.
Yeah. It's that feeling that I want more sometimes than the matches. And I think a lot of where AEW has suffered this year is because there's been a lack of anticipation. The matches are a thrill in the moment, and then they don't linger as long in the memory. We're here at the end of the year, and I think one of the biggest strikes against AEW in the second half of this year has been everything MJF's been doing. And I would say that's pretty much been from the end of the Adam Cole match at Wembley onwards. So that was the end of August. So you got September, October, November, December. That's 4 months out of this year where people have been extremely critical of MJF. And I think that does such a disservice to the prior 8 months. Mm-hmm. It struck me that he was one of the reasons why he was hitting you so hard with I had the best this, I had the best that, I had the best this, I had the best that. It's because it was pretty true. It was you
could back it up.
At worst, arguable with something like the 4-way at Double or Nothing, right? But we came out of that show and it was the first thing Miller said. I think that's the best 4-way match I've ever seen. That wasn't, he wasn't sort of privy to what MJF was going to add into a promo on Wednesday night. That was just what he felt in the moment. And there was a lot of people in the building that agreed based on the noise that they were making. And that is, by any measure, 8 months of the year where you've been the world champion, where you've been a prodigy really based on your age, and where you're taking on these people kind of at their own game, and you're being asked to be a company leader in the wake of a back half of 2022 that was just had a cloud over it, and all of the things working against MJF's title, and not least the fact that Punk was the guy that was supposed to get him there and split. All I'm saying is MJF had to do that without CM Punk, and he did it with a John Moxley that wasn't super enthusiastic either. And yet, he went on to have this fantastic year, and then all of a sudden, it's just a load of bollocks, that you read all the time about he's got too much power over his storyline, he's got too much creative direction. I'm not going to argue that a couple of things haven't been missteps. I enjoyed it more than consensus, but I acknowledge the big failings of the full game main event, for example. And yet, his body of work across those 8 months, for his age and his experience level and as a champion, stands up against virtually anybody's his age I can think of in wrestling history. And again, because you're watching what is predominantly a cold product, it's never felt more like the Challenger brand. Challenger is supposed to be exciting. It is actually making a run at the market leader, and it's not really doing that right now. 2023 MJF will age phenomenally well. Shawn Michaels didn't draw in 1996 either, and you go back and you watch his matches and they kick ass, and MJF's Iron Man match is going to be rewatched. The Fatal 4-Way is going to be rewatched. The Adam Cole match is going to be rewatched, and people will just remember the highs of that storyline and how the tension made them feel. It has just been a big contributing factor in a product gone cold that I just think he's taken far too many knocks for. Personally, more of the year has been awesome than bad, but we are where we are right now, and it's he's killed it. MJF has killed it.
On MJF, and going back to your question or segue about going to see the shows live, MJF versus Adam Cole was in some way It wasn't just like a great match. It wasn't just this universally really popular, dramatic match where not just Andy Murray, there's someone I follow on Twitter who profoundly hates that sort of thing, but went and it was like, well, that was amazing to watch it live. Even though on television, I would have hated it. I thought that was a masterpiece because they had ostensibly, it's all very, up for debate, but they had ostensibly what they thought at the time, the most people who had paid money willingly to watch a live wrestling show ever. And whether it was just a lovely byproduct of the particular storyline they told, or whether the storyline was told for this grand purpose, they crafted this match that thought, right, we've got genuinely the biggest soundscape ever. We could get the loudest responses ever because they're the most people in one building ever. How do we get them to make every single noise? People literally piss themselves laughing at the banter exchanges at the start when they were just mocking each other. Like the wrestling equivalent of like, haven't flipped your head square as mate. But like they were like wrestling, like taking the piss out of each other, banter as wrestling. And then these sort of like, ooh, Adam Cole, you prick, you're doing a brain buster on the stairs. Like you had those gasps. You had like, again, Bryce Remsburg, wonderful slapstick guy.
He passed out mid-count.
Passed out mid-count, taking a Canadian destroyer, yet more laughter. These super violent spots where it's like, oof. These like, near falls, because they were incredible as well. Like, they crafted this match, and this underscores that MJF is a genius, and he knows what he's doing. I would argue that it's a noble failure. His quest to get reactions, to get the crowd to make noise, he sort of missed a step and went, if I do this, it will condition the fans to go, yay, or chant what I'm about to do. I think he's missed that emotional layer with the kangaroo kick, for example. But in terms of how can I drive an emotional response from an audience, and he can measure the success of that by volume, that's crowd psychology, like that all-in main event was special. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. And it was just what a time to be there as well. And then Kenny Omega didn't work friggin' singles match. Like, what are we doing? It was a dynamite ass match. I said it was a dynamite ass match. Can anyone remember it? Yeah. Did it even get that loud a reaction? In the moment, I'm thinking, I'm watching Kenny Omega live, and he's just in a Terminator dive, and it's so spectacular, the arc, that I'm not even looking at the screen. I'm just watching him. Oh, this is really fun. Will it trouble anyone's match of the year list? Did it come at the expense of something that truly could have been magical? No, yes.
Not to double down on the negativity, I know it's the good vibes, but I just want to illustrate a point with that. When I was on about how great...
Piss off anyone who disagreed with me on that.
Good and even great matches.
You were just objectively wrong.
Good and even great matches just can be lost to bad booking.
Beholden to initials.
Kenny Omega.
An absolute mark tribalist.
That was the first. That was the first of two well-worked defeats to Takeshita, who wasn't followed up on. So all of that's lost. Like, all of that was for Nout over the space of 2 weeks, 2 massive defeats, 2 pinfall wins over Kenny Omega. They didn't follow up on the Takeshita push. So even if the all-out match, which I thought was overrated, but a lot of people liked it, even if that was the one, it hasn't served Takeshita. It hasn't served its purpose. So again, the good wrestling is for naught.
That's not 100% true, in my opinion, but we will get over this one day. We will get over this Kenny Omega no singles match at Wembley one day. Feed me something nice to say.
Well, I was just going to ask you too about the experience. You know, the fantastic matches. Your MJF, Adam Cole's, your CM Punk, Samoa Joe. But the experience of watching wrestling at Wembley, and even singing Judas, for example. What was all that like?
Well, there's better be positive vibes. There's the one miserable twat in the entire stadium, despite previously saying, Hamlet's got the same relationship that a lot of people have with Chris Jericho, right? Where it's like, go at half the time, you've outlived your usefulness, the other half, okay? Maybe it's 70-30 for Michael Hamflett. Yeah. Even he was like, can't wait to sing Judas. Maybe it's because we sang our own lyrics and as an in-joke with the boys. And then he did Freddie Mercury, and Hamflett was like, I'm absolutely
disgraceful.
Yeah, that was...
and it's weird, again, AEW's in the place it's in right now. We don't talk about enough that they're as good as Drew, the biggest house ever. Like, I know Brent Council have got the stats and whatever. It's good enough. It is absolutely good enough to call
even if certain people didn't actually end up going through the turnstiles, they still paid for the ticket.
Yeah, and the fact they're going back next year as well.
And
Speaks volumes.
Sales have started well.
Yeah.
Like, sales have surprised people. There is still a hunger for AEW in this country, at least. There is still a hunger for the feeling of the big day out, the big stadium wrestling show. They've absolutely captured enough.
I want to go.
Well, so I was making comparisons in the summer that... So WWE ran SummerSlam in 1992, and by January they were running Raw at the Manhattan Center, and the trends felt very similar. You go to a market that is starving for your product, and of course they're going to spend big. I think that's been proven wrong by next year's, or like 2024's All In. They might have to start doing Manhattan Center scale dynamites, but like the market is still bigger. WWE in 93 weren't running Wembley again. They were running the Whitley Bay Ice Rink. They were running,
I went to the Whitley Bay Ice Rink.
Like, they weren't getting to do Wembley again. AEW is
Bret
still...
Hart versus Ric Flair.
Oh my God. Like, there was still... Let's do a 30-minute podcast on that, please. They're still healthy enough.
Chops.
Like, still healthy enough. Still, like, interesting enough for people to want to take a look and see what's going on. The roster is so big, and obviously that's got its own flaws and problems, but it's still so big and vast that people can fantasy book enough things for a stadium setting, as we've been doing, about, well, this time they won't. Like, Kenny will get a singles and it'll be against so-and-so. Danielson will do what? McGinnis coming out of retirement. There's enough things already to pick at. And that's like, shows me that the heart's still beating. Like, if you're not fantasy booking, you've got a big problem. If you're not excited to pay for wrestlers in person, you've got a big, big problem. Vegas is a tricky one, right? So me and Sidge could give you well more than half an hour of good vibes on what an amazing time we had visiting Las Vegas for pro wrestling. Unfortunately, what we also saw firsthand was a product that had gone cold. So it's a bit of a tricky one to match up. You can have a brilliant time at Double or Nothing. We come out the show, immediately you log on Twitter, consensus worst AEW pay-per-view ever. So it's a tricky one, tricky circle to square that, but certainly Wembley was all of it. Wembley was absolutely all of it. I hope next year, because I think this audience here in the UK is clearly more valuable than ever at this point, I hope that card is treated with a little bit more respect than it was, because we know we're getting the all-in, all-out doubler again. Like, prioritise us this time around. I think that, like, learn that lesson and get it right this time.
I think there was high hopes for All In at Wembley. I think people may misremember the build to Hangman Page and Swerve. I don't think there was such... No one was going into it saying this is going to be the best Texas deathmatch ever, was it? I think Mox and people like that had kind of had that on lock, and then...
Had a lot to live up to, certainly.
Yeah, what we got at Full Gear was mind-blowing.
There's nothing like watching something unfold, knowing, oh, they've nailed this. Let's just strap in. This is amazing. You don't even think about it. You just get consumed by the bloodlust.
What does it make you do when you...
Just bleed. It's just absolutely unbelievable.
Into his mouth.
Like, they just set that tone of, right, I'm going to kill you. Well, tough titties, mate. I can't die. It doesn't matter what you try and do. I'll state myself. Yeah. I can't. I want to kill you. Oh, I won't die then. It's like, okay, let's have a race to the death then, I guess. Who's gonna die? It was just absolutely unbelievable. And again, because that match, and again, it's too easy to lose perspective. I have to remind myself how special this promotion still is, right? It's so easy to lose perspective. And maybe this is a result of excess as well. Maybe it's not my fault. Maybe there is some, blame to be portioned to AEW. But because that Texas Death match is the one time you think in your head of, right, AEW Blood, that match is just unbelievable, right? And it was the best violent match of AEW of the year. Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks was unfreaking believable. It's a spot where they're doing dueling stuff with the strap. And Danielson is getting blown away, and he's like, Jesus Christ, he's getting paintbrushed. And then he stands back up. No one can pace a match like Bryan Danielson or Kenny Omega. And that was one of Bryan Danielson's best ever individual performances for me. And then he looks like, right, okay, Starks is going to win this. And then he rises up, and you just think, how can you come back from this? And then he just tars him. And the finish, it's like, it just shouldn't be possible. That's the thing. AEW is so good that it takes the piss, and it shouldn't even be that good. They shouldn't be able to justify it. They shouldn't be able to earn it. Ricky Starks sold in that strap-assisted lapel lock, was it? Mm-hmm. Like he was getting disemboweled in a zombie movie. That his face was like, I'm dead. I'm going to die in this moment. It's wrestling. You're not. You're just going to pretend to be passed out. You cannot do that if there's not something still special, unparalleled. We use goated as a piss take. On some level, even in 2023, All Elite Wrestling delivered some of the greatest of all time professional wrestling moments and performances. Still fighting for this title.
10 minutes left. We'll try and cram in as much as we possibly can. Apologies if we miss it out. Let us know in the comments what we've blatantly missed out. You wrote a list of the 10 best wrestlers of the year for WhatCulture.com. One of the names on that list was Timeless Toni Storm.
I think she's had a brilliant year. Again, somebody that I think is drawing criticism at the moment because it's reflective of a direction that AEW has taken. I understand the criticisms towards the character, but I welcome more ambition in the likes of a Timeless Toni Storm. She, this year alone, has secured her place as the in-ring ace of AEW's women's division and like the greatest AEW women's champion ever, I think, and on match quality alone. And often that's all the women get to work off because so few of them get characters and stories. Like that match quality matters, probably more in the women's division than it does anywhere else in AEW. She was doing all that. Nobody liked the Outcasts. I know, it was kind of funny actually, but like nobody really liked them. And Toni Storm had great matches in spite of this. So very, very worst.
Love your top three. Kangaroo Cake, Outcasts, Timeless Toni Storm.
AEW. Still absolutely fine. Like,
Jesus Christ.
This character.
Before Luther, the butler.
We've both talked about
Luther.
where me and Sid agree on Timeless Toni Storm is that the character has to exist first and foremost within the context of a wrestling show.
Yes.
And it has veered too far away from that. But I really think, especially since she's won the title, they've got back. That belt has drawn her back in. She might be toasting it like she's won an Oscar, but film-based character. You do film stuff. You know, when you're just making silent movies, and it was a cute idea to fill like an ad break instead of a chin lock. So I like that. I like that as be creative, try these things. It's like everybody knows you're throwing to the ad break. Even if you're watching on Fight, we're going to the ad break.
I didn't.
Well, the match
I'm an idiot, I'm half
but the
awake.
match slows down and it's why not try something else? This character's really generating some buzz. It's getting over. It's selling t-shirts. The quarter hours are good. Why not try that? It didn't work that well. People gave it pelters really, but it was absolutely worth a try because again, AEW should still be the place where you take a few creative risks, even if some of them fail. The matches, I know Trey Gate will hang around the neck of Toni Storm for a while, but I think she's recovered that already on television. I think it's given life to the Mariah May introduction, which again is one of the better introductions of a woman in AEW history. I keep saying AEW history, but when we talk about the women's division, it's just not that much has been made. So for Mariah May to get this arc before she's had a match and had the opportunity to lose 4 matches and get a TBS title shot, it's quite amazing. I have high hopes for where all that pays off because we will care so much more when we get there, and that is head-on identifying a massive problem. So that's growth. That's, for me, objective and measurable growth for, small mercies, but measurable growth for a division that has needed it since day dot. They haven't got a Britt Baker hot hand right now, but Timeless Toni Storm is a very unique one and one that continues to be worth going with.
To once again portray the fact that we are philosophical mortal enemies about professional wrestling, to put over someone in the women's division, for me, through the body of work in the professional wrestling matches, was Chris Statlander. The last 2 or 3 minutes of her collision match with Britt Baker, trended towards masterpiece. How can you create so much drama when you know for a fact there's no title switch coming? You just kind of know for a fact. They delivered that magic wrestling feeling of switch your brain off, feel it in your gut, any rationale of, what does the booking follow after this? Turn that off because you've got no choice. They've completely locked you into the drama. And Statlander had Jade Cargill's best match, Britt Baker's best match in 2 years since the last one was Statlander.
She was the right opponent at exactly the right time for Julia Hart as well. Julia Hart's had a great year, but she needed a Chris Statlander as part of her ascension.
That's A stuff. She carried a lot of people to their best matches. It wasn't the most spectacular television. In fact, it was pretty much just have some women wrestle you. Cool, really inspiring. But she transcended it, in my opinion. I thought she was an excellent champion.
Amazing year for Christian Cage as well. And I'm going to mention a name, and if you don't like it, cry me a river. But we loved the final burial with Jungle Boy, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One thing on Jungle Boy, right? I think this guy's made one mistake in his career compared to several by the other guy in that situation.
20 more years at it,
I just think this situation was already untenable.
Yeah.
before Jack Perry was banned from doing something on Collision.
Somebody was going to do a thing, and a thing was going to happen, and
Someone was going to
Jack
upset
Perry
him. He was looking for a way out.
Yeah.
I think the lad has been unfairly maligned. As far as I'm concerned, he's never been reckless. I don't know. Maybe he's laid in a stiff shot. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be speaking it from the perspective of like a worker who would know. Who'd be the judge of who's good to work with. That's really not for me to say. But I don't think he's injured anyone. I think he's made one mistake when a young lad has had all of this pressure in his own career. He's had all this volatile stuff going on elsewhere. The guy's done one thing wrong, and now he's like an absolute like sacrificial lamb for the discourse. And I just want to say, I think that is kind of unfair. He deserves every chance to sort of win people back.
He'll be sending the Punker a Christmas card next year because he's going to be the most relevant he's ever been when he comes back. There's going to be such heat and tension around his return. If you really think about, like, where did it all happen? It happened on a pre-show. The act was bad. That entrance music did not work. Like, the heel turn was failing. The Jungle Boy babyface turn had failed. Like, we were in Vegas. He was getting booed. We were shocked, weren't we? It's like, Christ, I hate Jungle Boy, mind. He was not having a good year. This will benefit him. Wrestling's weird like that. This will benefit him long term. He probably wouldn't have gone away. He'd have just been in there, Collision, Rampage, Dynamite, rotation. Like, what was he doing? You know, like, what was he doing before? He was feeding him a hook again.
I'm going to say one nice thing about him.
The coffee match
was
amazing.
Positive vibes and all the rest of it. Before, I'm going to say one more thing about that before I say nice things about Jack Perry in that match, because it was unbelievable, and Revolution in general, is that it's the office joke, right? When David Brent has got the lodger, who's his mate's daughter, and they're all it's the old boys club, and it's horrible, and they're all doing like innuendos about like police and sexual stuff, and the one person at the end says something that's a little bit worse, right? And then Brent's like, go on, get out. Get out. Or it's like when you're the person who laughs at the person in the classroom. I'm sure everyone's been there, right? You're the person who laughs at the joke that shouldn't be said, but is said in the classroom, and you're the one who gets sent to the back. Like, Jungle Boy's the last person to do the thing that...
And the authority figures just change the rules out of nowhere, and you can't work with that, like when somebody changes the rules on you.
But Jack Perry is like the last person to do it. It's like, all right, okay, away with you. I just felt a little bit sorry for him. But the coffin match was unbelievable. And frankly, Christian Cage was the best thing about it. His performance was just, he's he's too good at being a heel. Yeah. And I've spoken a lot, just in a general sense, that wrestling's chasing something that is unrecoverable in terms of heat. Because it's reached the point now where if you're so good at being a heel, like, you just completely defeat the object, not by yourself, not on purpose, but you're just so good that fans think, oh, you're good. Like, I really respect you, disgusting man who loves the fact that your dad's dead. You know what I mean?
You're good at your job. Boo!
Yeah. Like, he couldn't have done more to try and sort of arrest that trend. He just wrestled like a rat, a cockroach, didn't do anything on offense, didn't have a long control period. Just, right, okay, your legs, I can sweep them from that position, or I can gouge your eyes out, I can throw soil at you. Just the most ultimate, classic, underhand tactics of, I'm getting nothing in this match. I can only stop you. I can't control you. I can't beat you up. I can only stop you. Like, a bit Savage Warrior from WrestleMania 7 in terms of the layout. Very different match, but philosophically, structurally not too different. Just, Christian Cage has been absolutely sensational. His comedic timing, his presence, his look, the way he lays out these matches where it's just so... He just need chops, doesn't need to get his stuff in. And again, I don't want to be Rip Rogers, but like, when you see Christian Cage operate in the way that he does, you think more people should learn how to be as clever as that. Maybe you can't, maybe he is one in a million.
Right, 60 seconds left. Let's do some honourable mentions. FTR versus Bullet Club Gold with one of the best tag team matches of the year.
Really, really great. Weird again about the churn, how it gets forgotten. Really great.
Really great.
Kenny Omega.
Bit too self-conscious, but carry on. Something good.
Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay, again, obviously match of the year candidate.
I've seen three of the best near falls you'll ever see in one match. That's Kenny Omega. He's just a total genius.
Was one I wasn't expecting to put in before it happened. Like a Dragon Gate street fight.
Unbelievable.
It's so fun. Actual AEW magic, that.
Yeah. Good corporate synergy. It's hard to master.
And Samoa Joe. What a year for Samoa Joe.
and like a turnaround of a year as well. Nobody was asking for much more Smojo than they were being given at the end of 2022.
It as well.
Yeah.
For it's like the what they call it, the golden handshake, the golden watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you give like the director award for The Aviator, you should have won it for Goodfellas or whatever it was. I one more thing as well. Just one of the most clever wrestling spot ideas I've ever seen. When Mac Jackson hit John Moxley in the face with the exploding sneaker, it just would take a genius to come up with something like that.
Anything else?
No.
I think we've covered it. If we
Timeless Tony Storm, Kangaroo Kicks, Luther, anything else?
I liked it when
The Outcast.
When Roddy Strong shouts his name.
Roderick Strong, Adam.
Yeah.
Number one with a bullet, the Giraffe.
Actually.
Oh, CM Punk's Collision promo when he came back. Like one Bill Phil in a business full of counterfeit books. What a what a pop.
The thing about that is that he struck the match and he was stood there with the match, burning his fingers, just ready to go. This entire show.
The Outrunners. Almost forgot to mention them.
Good.
Love the Outrunners.
Tell him, Turb.
Brody King. Brody King.
Of course, yes.
Coolest member of the House of Black.
And the Continental Classic, which we'll talk more about.
Kenny Omega for Kingo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for King. I forgot about
Omega's best match this year for me.
Let us know what else we've missed out in the comment section below or on Twitter or X at WhatCultureWWE. Watch, they can follow all three of us. You can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
Follow Michael Sidgwick at
M. Sidgwick.
Follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE, as I said. Make sure you subscribe to What Culture Wrestling wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts, because we're doing this for the main roster of WWE and for NXT, of course. Very soon. But for now, this has been the AEW's Year in Review. My thanks to Hamlet Sidgwick, to our brilliant producer, Adam Nicholas. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.